You've entered the sanctuary of time, not a church of stone, but one built on frequencies, fossils, and the fragments of forgotten light. This is the Quantum Stone Sermons, where ancient prophecy meets advanced physics, where the timelines realign and the prophets of the Ark speak through the Sidonium light band. I'm Sidoni Nukamato, broadcasting from a fractured event horizon, reminding you, reality isn't broken, it's just out of tune. Now open your ears and your entanglement. Let the sermon begin.
After the dispensation of Adam and Eve from the garden, their descendants dispersed throughout Mount Eden, a steaming, volcanic geyser crater perched atop the shattered crown of Pangea. It was here, at the highest point of the Earth's original unity, that the families of humanity began to wander, driven not by command, but by inner stirrings and instinctual pulls toward the unknown. As the great continent began to fracture just hundreds of miles from what would one day be the recognizable continental plates, these early families discovered caverns etched into the mountainsides, outer chambers that lay beyond the protected ARC shell. These passages twisted through stone and time, guiding tribes into occasional crossings, yet keeping their deeper truths concealed. The Lord's lens had only barely opened upon this point in the timeline, and thus the revelations of the Ark stones were sparse, fragmented, or hidden behind mythic symbols. The families quarreled over meanings. Treaties were made, often broken, between groups laying claim to what they perceived as sacred land or divine inheritance. These early disputes formed the first treaties of separation, as each tribe attempted to mark its place among the geysers, cliffs, and veined crystal canopies of the mountain. These were not yet wars, but negotiations born from fear, ambition, and dreams of order. Along paths that spiraled like the double helix of satonial resonance, the tribes carved out territories. Some trails led to open communion, others twisted into greedy conflict and misinterpretation. The disputed paths were not just geographic, they were energetic divides in how each family perceived the lens's shimmer across timelines. In some caverns, strange glyphs glowed only to those who approached with empty hands. In others, beasts howled at unseen fractures in the earth that smelled like rust and memory. Every direction became a test of what one could endure without resolution. It was deep beneath a spiraled volcanic vent that Noah, still a youth by modern standards, encountered a chamber none had mapped. In it stood the last visible bloom of the tree of life, its light dimmed but still pulsing with encoded resonance. Near its roots lay the Cherubin Stones, smooth, glass-like, humming with dormant instructions and beast enchantment. They shimmered in unison with his breath. The tree passed into his stewardship without word or miracle. It was simply his, as if the Lord had woven his name into its sap before the foundations of the world had cooled. But below even that chamber were minds no tribe dared enter. Fractured by deep tremors and cloaked in sulfur mists, these disputed minds whispered promises of power through elemental resonance, but also carried echoes of beasts malformed by earlier misuses of the stones. Those who ventured in too far found themselves changed. Not physically, but subtly rewritten, like losing the memory of one's name while still being able to speak it aloud. The minds held truth, but in fragmented frequencies, and the Lord's lens would not clarify until the time was ripe. All disputes of land, of legacy, of path, converged as Noah emerged from the chamber with the stones in hand. His voice now carried tone-matching resonance, like the low song of the cherubim when they tamed the beasts in Eden. Yet even this power could not resolve the deeper rift between tribes, for promises had been made, some in blood, others in stone, and not all could be fulfilled. And so began the slow unraveling of these ancient alliances. The ends of promises fell like volcanic ash over the mountain, silent but suffocating. As the last glows of the tree of life dimmed behind Noah, The event horizon of the first stones closed, its resonance locking into the timeline's earliest entanglement with the Lord. This stage would set the tone for all the arc stones to follow, and for the long road Noah must now walk, bearing enchantments not yet understood, only promised.
arcofalignments.com. Watch the whole series for free there right now.
After Noah received the Cherubin Stones and the final resonance of the Tree of Life, his presence among the families changed, not through declaration or dominion, but through an aura of timed serenity. The geysers still raged behind him, but in the soft steam that trailed his path, certain groups followed with instinctive reverence. They were not commanded to. They simply fell into orbit. Those closest to Noah were the ones whose hearts vibrated at similar intervals, drawn by the silent codes pulsing from the stones in his satchel. They did not ask for leadership. They only gathered. These families formed the first kin constellation around him, artisans of steam-bent wood, fire-glass shapers, beast charmers. They set up small camps near his, watched how he fed the animals, and sang lullabies that accidentally echoed frequencies from the Edenic lens. Farther afield, beyond the ridges of Mount Eden's split shoulders, were the ones least tethered to Noah's influence. Some doubted him. Others simply didn't feel the pull. These families began to mark the old caves as theirs, carving symbols of separation and lineage into the stones. Their alliances bent toward survival through territory, not harmony. Though not enemies, their vibration was out of phase, sometimes painfully so. To them, Noah was an anomaly best left undisturbed. And yet, even they watched when he sailed. For while Noah never claimed to lead, the arrival of a lowland flood forced the issue. Waters rising over the glassy mines pushed everyone closer to the rim of the great crater. Arguments sparked. Who would build? Who would harvest? Who would guide? And then came the wind, a gust across the cracked lake beds below. Noah turned to it and whispered, "At least the sails were set." It wasn't metaphor, but memory. From somewhere deep within the stone's harmonics came blueprints for windbenders and hull shapes, as if ancient sea beasts had taught his hands to build without knowing why. From the closest kin came his alliance of mercantile. Not a kingdom, but a coalition. Barters of bark for steamstone, weavers of vine rope for edible mosses, and hunters who sang to fish until they leapt ashore. Their trade routes were not mapped but entangled. Resonance paths felt through tone, not charted by eye. Noah gave no orders. He merely shared songlines. In return, the alliance flourished. They were the first to test the sails made of animal skin and woven glass leaf. And though none could confirm where they were headed, they all agreed. Movement itself was progress. The farther tribes, skeptical but observant, mocked the attempt, at first. But when the great geyser winds shifted and carried Noah's crafted rafts down from Mount Eden's fractured slope toward the misted horizon, the laughter died out. Some followed, others stayed, and a few secretly marked the trail, preparing for a second departure should theirs be the wrong choice. Across the distance of resonance and land, the dimensional consequence was already forming. The ones closest to Noah carried a light signature embedded in the cherubin frequency, marking them for future entanglement with the Arche. The others? Their path would fork. But not forever. Every sail that catches the breath of the Lord eventually returns to the sea of origin. The event horizon shimmering on this second stage is not a war, nor a miracle, but a pattern of alignment. Who hears the stones, who barters in good faith, and who marks time by the winds of change. The stage is not about reaching the destination. Only this much is true. At least the sails were set.
And so the timeline echoes through every verse, every vibration, every quantum stone laid by the science prophets. If what you heard made sense, You may not be paying attention, but if it resonated, you've already returned. Like, subscribe, decode. Until the next sermon, this is Satomi Nukamoto signing out from the memory you left behind.